Okay, so for my discovery project, I did a emulation station on a Raspberry Pi. I know that I'm not recording this in the classroom, but I kind of dropped the ball a little bit and I forgot that we had to record it to upload to YouTube. So yeah. So how does it exactly work? So what I did was I used an emulator called RetroArch and I ran it through a distribution of Ubuntu. And the distribution of Ubuntu that I used was actually specifically made for the Raspberry Pi. I chose to do RetroArch because unlike some emulators where you can just put the image on an SD card and then put it in and it's all good and ready to go, RetroArch actually takes a bit more setup and it uses system-specific cores to run games. Okay, so installing Ubuntu on the Pi was actually really easy. The makers of the board, they make a program called Raspberry Pi Imager, and all you have to do to make that work is you choose your device, the operating system you want to use, and the storage, and then you flash it straight to the SD card. So in my case, I chose the Raspberry Pi 5, which is the board that I'm using, and then for the OS, I decided to go with Ubuntu Desktop 24.04.1, long time support. And I tried this with Raspberry Pi OS, but I ran into more problems on Raspberry Pi OS with RetroArch, making it work and everything, and I found that Ubuntu just worked better with it. So installing RetroArch is actually really easy. Once you have Ubuntu all set up, you've run through this initial setup process and everything, you're to the desktop. Then you have to open terminal and run some commands. So the first one just installs dependencies that will make RetroArch work on the hardware and the Ubuntu distribution. After you run that long string of text there, you have to add the libretro repository. This just tells Ubuntu where to pull RetroArch from to download and install the program and the cores. After that, you install the necessary updates with the sudo apt-get update command. And then finally, you can install RetroArch and the necessary cores. So you just do that command on the bottom there, and it will pull RetroArch from the internet, and it will download and install everything you need. Okay, so once that's done, RetroArch is now in the applications folder on Ubuntu, and you can just launch it like normal. Once you're in RetroArch though, we do have to create directories for the games and get working thumbnails. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually switch over to the Raspberry Pi here, and then I will show off the games working, and then we can also show how to go about getting thumbnails. So now that we're into Ubuntu here, all you have to do is start up RetroArch, which is I pinned it to my dock just to make it a little easier to get to. And then once we're inside of RetroArch, we can hook up our controller. So I will go and do that here. Okay, and it detects the controller there. And I already mapped all the buttons and everything, so then we can scroll through the interface and run the games and everything. So as you can see here, you could just load the core and then the game right afterwards, but I like to have the directories made by system with thumbnails. So if we scroll over a little bit here, you can see I got two directories. I have Sega Genesis up there with Sonic, and I have Super Mario World for the SNES. So I'm going to show off a game here. I do run into a weird bug. Sometimes it happens like 1 in 10 times where it says that RetroArch isn't responding, but once the game loads, it comes back. As you can see, the game works just fine. Okay, so as you can see, the game works fine there. So now I'm going to go ahead and show the process that I use to get the directories working as well as the thumbnails. So RetroArch actually has this really cool mode called desktop mode, where you can get your thumbnail, where you can import your thumbnails and get your directories working all from there. So if you hit F5 on your keyboard, it will close out of RetroArch and it will open up desktop mode. And as you can see here on the left, you have all of your directories here. and there's my Sonic the Hedgehog game. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to add a Nintendo Entertainment System directory, and I'm going to get Mario Bros for the Nintendo Entertainment System on here. So if we right click and hit add new playlist, we can just type in our playlist name. So Nintendo Entertainment System. As you can see there, here's our new directory. If I could click it. Okay, and then once we're in here, all you have to do is add your ROM file. So I have the ROM for Mario Bros downloaded. So if we go to add files, we can browse to where I have the actual file here. So if we go to desktop, ROMs, Nintendo Entertainment System. I also broke my ROMs folder up by system as well. And here's Mario Bros. And here you can name your ROM. It shows you the path as to where it is. You can specify your core, which is really nice because then it won't ask you every time to which core you want to use in running the game. So the NES core that I'm going to use is NEStopia. And then database is just used if you want to download thumbnails over the internet. You can select Nintendo Entertainment System here. I personally ran into issues when downloading it over the internet, but I'm going to show you how to do it manually. So after you have all that filled out, you can just hit OK. And now as you can see here, there's no box art as of yet. So now what we can do is, I have the box art file right here. So then it's just as simple as taking the image and dragging and dropping it. And that will make a copy of this file actually in the RetroArch thumbnails directory. But yeah, so once you do that then, you can see you have your game here in the directory with the game name and the thumbnail. So now all it's up to do is restart RetroArch. So I'll go ahead and do that. And that will restart the program. So now I'm going to plug my controller back in. Okay. And I'm going to just put full screen mode back on. All right. And if we scroll over here, you can see we got our new directory with the game. It tells you which core it uses, how long it's been played, and the last time it was played. And so there's our box art right there. So we can just run the game. It doesn't ask us for a core because we specified that when creating the directory. And as you can see, the game works just fine. Okay, so the last thing I want to talk about is the kind of struggles that I faced when doing this project. So I'm just going to switch back over here to my PowerPoint. Okay, so the biggest struggle that I faced was actually getting the games to run good. So when I first started this discovery project, I had a Raspberry Pi 3, which has 1 GB of RAM compared to the Pi 5's 8. And trying to get that running in a desktop environment like Raspberry Pi OS or Ubuntu just did not work. The games were laggy, there's a lot of audio crackle, just couldn't keep up with it. And once I even tried terminal-based Linux distros as well, but those didn't work with it very well with it either. But after upgrading to the Pi 5, I ran into virtually no issues with RetroArch. I did mention about how I had issues with the thumbnails, downloading them from the internet. But other than that, I ran into virtually no issues with RetroArch. And then finally, the last issue I had, and this was with the Pi 5, was getting it to display to monitors that had a greater resolution than 1080p. First, I didn't even want to display the 1080p monitors either. I had an issue with my adapter, but I did have to add a couple of flags to the config file where so I could force a resolution, and then once I did that, it started displaying okay to monitors that were at 1080p resolution. Okay, so that concludes my PowerPoint. I hope that everybody enjoyed watching this. Kind of gave a little bit of nostalgia with all the retro gaming. But that concludes my discovery project. I had a lot of fun doing this, and I'm definitely going to be keeping Ubuntu and RetroArch installed on the Raspberry Pi 5 to use in the future. And that's it.